Welcome to Hazy 2 Clear TV from Buffalo, New York. I'm Josh Veronica. I'm joined today by John Core, Chris Skomra, David O'Sullivan, and Andrew LaMartina. This episode's issue is Ukraine. Now we know President Obama has warned Vladimir Putin against taking action in Ukraine. We know the people of Crimea have taken a referendum and voted to secede from Ukraine and then join Russia, which happened within the past few days. And we've seen, Putin really flex his muscles in terms of foreign affairs. John, is what Crimea doing okay?
Well, first off, I think the whole situation, I think right now what basically the world and the U.S. has to remember is the people at risk here. When the Ukraine is brought up, we talk about what North Korea is looking at, Syria, and I have to agree with Charles Krauthammer when he says that that isn't the problem. We have dealt with these countries before. What the other problem is Eastern Europe is at risk because it seems like Putin is moving into Crimea, moving into Ukraine. And who knows how far he's going to go? He's pretty authoritative, and I don't think that there's anything that'll stop him. And I think the U.S. kind of looks weak when they look at it that way. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The U.S. has placed sanctions on Putin, obviously, but I think the big thing that needs to happen here is I think there needs to be a strong, unified UN action, like militarily, to aid Ukraine. Russia has annexed Crimea, and depending whether or not Crimea actually wants to be part of Russia is not really the issue here. The referendum was extremely rushed, and it's been claimed to be illegal. So I don't really think. We need to take a step back, and Crimea can do this referendum with a more drawn-out process and a more elaborate process. But I think right now the U.S. and the UN need to take like a authoritative stance and actually put forth good support tactics. Because sanctions is really not gonna do it. I think it's too.
Are you saying troops on the ground? Or?
No, not necessarily troops on the ground, but just.
Diplomatic solution is what you're trying to
say.
Because honestly, if that's what you're saying, I kind of agree.
It seems, I think what Chris is trying to say is that when we go into these certain types of situations, recently with Obama and John Kerry as our Secretary of State, we'll go into places like Syria and now the Ukraine and Russia.
We're not in Ukraine.
We're not in Ukraine, but we're dealing with a
Ukraine
Ukraine affair, and Russia right now is going to push into the Ukraine. So I think the Ukraine is definitely a place to look at how they deal with it. But Obama and John Kerry recently with Syria and with Russia, dealing with all the other countries around them in Eastern Europe and in the Middle East. They don't have enough foreign policy experience, Obama and John Kerry. If you look at Obama before he took office, he would have a job in the House and Congress, going...
Like everybody else, that has nothing to do with it. Honestly, what we should have done with Ukraine is we should have acted before it got this out of hand. We should have done something about Ukraine. We hesitated.
What type of action specifically?
We should have shown support for the rebels. We honestly should have done that. Because Putin sees us being weak.
You mean militarily?
Yes, militarily. We should have, got the problem out of the way when it was still budding. And now that it's gotten out of hand and we still haven't done anything, Putin sees it as his chance to go in. At this point, we can't do anything, so our best option is to go through a diplomatic way like we, usually do.
Now, there's often two perspectives on this issue. Russia's kind of claiming that they're doing Crimea a favor because the Crimeans, associate more with Russian culture. They want to be part of Russia. Putin claims that's why he's doing it. The U.S. seems to believe the opposite, that this is symbolic of something greater, that Putin's trying to demonstrate his power and expand his influence and to Eastern Europe. Andrew, what's your stance on that?
Well, obviously, this whole situation is very complex. We can't really know for certain what exactly Putin is planning, if this will just be the end of it, or if he'll continue on to like the Ukraine or elsewhere in Eastern Europe. But I mean, ultimately, the election did say that 96.7% of the people that voted, which was 83% of the population that was eligible to vote, were in favor of joining Russia, and Crimea is predominantly Russian-speaking. So I think in that regard, I mean, if the case is that election was fair, which there's been some controversy over that, then I think that they should be able to join Russia. However, I think that we should get involved diplomatically if Putin decides to march onto Ukraine, or if he decides to actually invade any other country that's not willing to join Russia. But I mean, ultimately, I think unless the situation drastically changes, we should not get involved militarily, because I mean, I'd prefer not to get militarily involved wherever
Right,
possible.
This one can't afford a war with Russia. That'd just be stupid.
At the same time, you can't be weak. You can't.
Yeah,
We're not saying
I
be
mean,
weak. We're saying we're saying like, okay, yeah, Putin, you're trying to go in, you're trying to invade. You gotta solve that through a diplomatic solution. You can't just like, if you're a kid on the playground,
Right,
you can't
but-
automatically go out
but do you
throwing
honestly
fists. You
think,
gotta
like,
talk it out first.
Through history, if you look back and if you give an authoritative figure like an inch, in this case Crimea, they're not going to be happy with that. History has dictated that they will want more, and they'll get. I mean, for lack of a better word.
We're not
blood.
saying to give
And
him
to
everything.
go-
We're not saying to give him an inch. We're trying to say don't do through troops on the ground at that point.
To
Like, that's
go
just
along with
stupid.
Chris too, you have to look at history about this. Before you said at first we should have taken earlier action and supported the rebels. Well, if you look back in history, that's come back to really bite us in the butt. I mean, if you look at 1980 when the Russians invaded Afghanistan, who did we support? Osama bin Laden and the Taliban, and look where that got us. It got us in the longest war America's ever been in. And
These aren't radical Islamists,
and
though.
it doesn't matter.
How does that not matter?
Because it doesn't. It doesn't matter what religion they are. You gotta be careful who you're dealing with, whoever it is. And look at in 1930, Hitler did the exact same thing that Putin is doing now. He moved into Czechoslovakia because he said that there were German-speaking people there, but
Again, we're not trying to say
can't.
to let him have Ukraine. We're just saying you have to look at it through a diplomatic solution. You can't do it through troops
I
on the
know,
ground.
but to go
That's what it
through
sounds
it,
like
to
you're
go
saying.
through a diplomatic, to look at it that way, you have to be strong. As Theodore Roosevelt would say, speak softly but carry a big stick. You gotta back it up,
So
okay?
you're agreeing with us in the sense that you have to solve it diplomatically.
Yes, but Obama and John Kerry have to move in a more authoritative manner.
We're out of time for today. Thank you for watching Hazy 2 Clear TV.